Phillip Morse. I'm a police officer in Northern Virginia.
My name's Ignacio. I've been a police officer for 8 years.
I'm born and raised in Northern Virginia. Went to McLean High School. Graduated from Shenandoah University in 2016. Played professional baseball with the Washington Nationals for 3 years. In 2019, after my release, started applying to police agencies in the DMV and was ultimately hired by an agency in Northern Virginia.
Born and raised in the area that I serve. My father's in law enforcement as well. My mother worked her way through the school system. So we're definitely a local family within the department that I work in.
Went through a 6-month academy, graduated in December 2019. Went through an FTO process for about 4.5 months, and then was ultimately cut loose in May for solo patrol.
Kind of different than most. I didn't originally want to get into law enforcement. I was somewhat of a knucklehead. Couldn't really find my way, and to make a long story short, my pops and my mom sat me down and were trying to help me come up with a game plan for my life. And my pops was like, hey, you should look into law enforcement. And I laughed at him, he laughed at me, and next thing I knew I was in uniform. I say that not to lighten the process. The process to become a police officer was extremely stressful, especially once I had committed myself to taking that leap. So although I was hesitant at first and not necessarily interested, as soon as I decided, hey, I'm gonna get into law enforcement, I went all in.
The reason I got into law enforcement, I grew up in a family of people who take care of other people. My mom was a nurse. My dad was in law enforcement for 25 plus years. He was on the federal side of things, and ultimately being a chief of one of the top agencies in the country. Seeing how he was compassionate about people, why he did the job for the community, for his officers, for his command staff, it really inspired me to get into the field of protecting and serving others.
Give you a little bit of background on my career. Started off in patrol, like most do. I worked my way into the community outreach unit, which I loved. I was able to create some programs through there. Also was involved in, and still am involved in peer support. And the one thing that I took the most pride in was our community outreach unit. But over the past couple of years, because of staffing issues and stuff like that, that got taken away, and then I was put back into patrol. To bring that full circle, I have to say that I have a lot of respect for those who have decided to still serve. And I also have respect for those who have decided to leave. For a lot of us right now, all a lot of us are looking for, or myself is looking for, is camaraderie. Having that camaraderie, noting that leadership has our back as we move forward, not really knowing what the future looks like for law enforcement, as so many people are leaving, it's made it stressful.
It's been quite the experience. I've enjoyed every single minute. I have great command staff, great supervisors. I work with some great people, and it's a big blue line family. At times the job is really stressful. It takes its toll sometimes, where it's hard to not bring work home. I've recently gone through some struggles in my personal life where going to work was my getaway from that, whereas sometimes for some other people, coming home is the getaway from work.
For anybody that says that it doesn't change you as a person, that's not true. I went from kind of being a knucklehead and kind of just floating around with what the world had to offer, and then very quickly got hit with some real life experiences that have shaped me, even into my later years. As I said, I have 8 years on.
I wake up every morning and I sit at the edge of my bed, and I kind of say like a quick prayer. I've lost a lot of things in the last couple of years. That's been tough on me. And I understand that at any point in time, somebody who either doesn't like us or knows that we're coming to a call for service can take us out in a heartbeat. But it's the harsh reality that guys like myself, my buddy, my pops, people that I look up to at other agencies have to go through every single day. And it's not just them, it's their families as well.
Out of all the years that I have served so far, the past few have been the hardest. At least for me in my career, it's always been somewhat of a roller coaster. But this one just seemed to be like a ever-evolving cycle of chaos and confusion and a lot of paranoia, I guess you could say, around the profession, what future plans are going to be.
August 4th of 2020 was one of the worst days of my life. It's a day that I'll never forget, but it's also a day that made me the person who I am today. On that day, somebody that I loved and vowed to love forever had stabbed me in the back and found somebody else right as we were getting into the next chapter of our lives together. I was in one of the darkest places that I've ever been in my entire life. I didn't go outside. The things that I love to do, watch baseball, go to the gym, socialize, go out, all of that stopped. I lost a ton of weight. I was stressed. I was depressed. I had anxiety. Coworkers of mine noticed and knew something was wrong. I was scared to come home because I would have to face the person that I once loved in the eyes. I'd have to look them in the eyes. And every day up until I moved on a couple months ago, I was asking myself this one question: why me? How could something like this happen to me? I believe that I'm a really good person. I'm a good human being. I care for others. I care more about people than I do myself. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a monster. I didn't see Phillip Morse. I saw somebody who was lost, somebody who wasn't honest to themselves, somebody who had no direction.
I've caught myself in times, I'm pretty open about this, but in 2017, I dealt with suicidal ideologies, which I believe were from alcoholism. I also believe that was from a compounded trauma, exposure to traumatic events on the job and not managing that well. And then since then blossomed into One Less, which is our nonprofit for suicide prevention for first responders and military. And then we also have Live to Live apparel, which was created with the idea that physical fitness is the strongest foundation to use when building yourself mentally and physically. And then we have the Live to Live podcast, which is kind of a mix of mental health, physical health, best practices, and things like that.
Recently, we just had National Police Week. My buddy and I, we put together an event with our brand, One Less, Live to Live apparel, and our podcast, Live to Live podcast. We had about 10, 15 guys there from our agency and guys that we mentor at the local gym that we work out at to support us. And I think the big thing was to just get everybody out to be with the families, the friends, and other supporters of the law enforcement community to honor those that have died in the line of duty, regardless if it's COVID or killed in action. To see everybody there supporting one another, it was emotional. But it was amazing to see everybody push one another to get through a 5K. I think I was reading that there was close to like 2,500 people there. They raised over $250,000 for the Officer Down memorial page. And cops, man, I don't know why I'm getting kind of like emotional doing this. It makes my heart kind of go pitter-patter sometimes because you don't realize how big the Blue Line family is until you kind of see everybody come together. You know, I'm told that I'm a part of the family, and then for a week of events, the candlelight vigil, the K-9 memorial, to see family members and friends and just supporters of law enforcement go to the law enforcement memorial to pay their respects and honor those who've paid the ultimate sacrifice. It's like emotional in so many different ways: happiness, sadness, pride.
What made it hard over the past 2 years is that before you'd experience a lot of messed up things and it just appeared to be worth it. You really thought that what you were doing was making an impact. Not to say that it doesn't anymore, but on a national level, the job really was giving a lashing that I don't believe it deserved. I kind of like to say in an unprofessional term that we're kind of all swimming in the same toilet. We're just trying to stay afloat. There's a lot of other stipulations that probably a lot of you guys who are watching this would agree with, but I'm not going to get into that because I'm still in the job and that would be unprofessional of me. But as a core basis, my biggest passion is to just make sure that the people wearing that uniform are taking care of themselves. Because what I've learned through my experiences is that the things on the job are not necessarily in my control. What admin does is not in my control. What the politicians decide to do is not in my control, unfortunately. And the more I try to control those things, the more depressed I get, the more angry I get, and the more that I resort to my bad habits or my poor coping mechanisms. But the more that I focus on my life outside of the job.
From a new guy like myself, first of all, I want to say I appreciate all those who are either close to retirement, have retired. Congratulations, you made it, you're there. Thank you for leading the way, being role models for everybody. It's been a blessing. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I want to be the change and not create change. I want to be the guy that the community calls when they need us the most. If I can be that resource for them to better what they're going through, no matter what it is, if it's a good day, if it's a bad day, that's why I do it.
I guess as a closing statement, I just want to thank those who have served, and I want to send blessings and prayers to all the families who have lost your family member, he or she, or K9 are all heroes in my eyes. And being able to have something like Police Week for the first time in several years was a blessing, because it was able to bring us all together in our one big toilet bowl and help and create an environment where we can at least stay afloat for a little bit longer. But yeah.
It's an honor and a privilege to be a part of this job, and I'm forever blessed.
Again, my name is Ignacio, and thank you.
Hear me when I say that person's always been me. Fear not, when that time comes, you can send me.